Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Two Spot Monkeys Live. I'm Jim, joined as always by Tom. Tom, how you doing?
Jim, what's up, dude? Great to be with you.
Absolutely. Episode 129 of this show. I just had a message come across my phone from you, but now I know what it was.
Multitasking.
Yes. First Fantasy Wrestling League mention of the day. Our Fantasy Wrestling League is drafting currently for next season, and Tom was alerting our friend Mike that he's up. So that means it'll be a little while, just not too long, and it'll be my turn again. So I got to start thinking about who I want. We're getting into those last rounds where it's kind of, I don't know, my queue is getting a little thin, but yet there's still plenty of people that as I look at them, I'm like, oh, that person, maybe that person.
Well, the two picks I just made, and we're in rounds, 17 and 18?
I think so, yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe either I'm a sucker or I'm going to get lucky. So
yeah, those are nice picks, actually. They were people I've been looking at and thinking. There's reasons on both of them why I didn't yet, but again, not our Fantasy Wrestling League podcast. So today we've got a few different things. We've got the biggest thing is our Ring of Honor Final Battle picks for our head-to-head, and then we're going to talk about some stuff towards the end of the show as well. But Tom, do you have the standings up? I'm just pulling them up here.
I do, yes. So we couldn't connect last week because I had death in the family, and we had family in town, and we had arrangements and a celebration of life. So that was wonderful. And while death is not a happy thing, the life we celebrated was a 98-year-old life. So definitely greater that person is on the other side of it than still here on Earth. So we did our picks online for Deadline. And
very astutely did not put them on Twitter for anybody to see. So.
It's all good. You went 4-3. I went 3-4. I barely got a chance to make those picks on Saturday. I appreciate that you nudged me because I had, again, all of the family stuff going on. So with your outcome there, it brings our total entering today. You're 70-28 on the year, and I'm 69-29. So a one match difference with Final Battle picks today, and then World's End picks 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks. And those will be on Twitter, just to let everybody know. And I will post them. I promise, really, I will. I knew you had the stuff going on. Obviously, we'd connected, and I knew what was going on with your family that day. And it got to be about, I don't know, half an hour before the show was going to start. And I was like, oh, Tom, we can't have head-to-head end like this. Because that would have put you behind the 8 ball so far that, you'd have just had to let me make picks first and pick the other person every time and hope it worked out for you. So I didn't want to see that become a thing, or we'd have had to just throw that show out, which maybe we could have done too. But I'm glad we didn't, because I picked Kiana James. So so I'll give you my quick insight as to why I picked Kiana James. Before I made my picks, I had seen a report that Izzy Dame, I think is her name, was going to be involved in that cage match. It didn't say with who or anything like that, but in my head I thought, well, it would make sense for her to help whoever this Izzy Dame is. And I'm so far behind on NXT, I'm not sure. But I thought to help the heel, overcome made sense. So that was like, without knowing that was what was going to happen, that was the piece of information that made me think probably Kiana James. And also the thought that Roxanne Perez could be moving up to the main roster in the not too distant future, I would think, maybe by Rumble, but we'll see. So anyways, that was our difference, main difference, and a little frustrated that Dominic Mysterio lost the title. Excuse me, I fully expected him to lose it to Wes Lee. Wes Lee, obviously with a back injury, it sounds like he's going to be out a long time, which is really, really too bad for Wes Lee, because I think he was finally really getting that chance to come into his own. So best wishes to him. But Dragon Lee, your new NXT North American champion for at least a little while, we'll see, since he's also featured on SmackDown at this point. So,
but will he now be right? Like,
Dominic was, on every brand basically. So, that's kind of I kind of like, I guess, that it's not hard split either. If you either do it or don't on the split, and they're blending the lines and doing it offensive ways this time. So, well, let's talk Final Battle. We've got 9 matches to pick because all of a sudden yesterday, Tony Khan realized he had a show on Friday night and decided to finish booking it. We've talked about this numerous times, and it reared its head here again. Tom, are you, well, before we jump into matches, are you planning on watching Final Battle?
Probably not, but that could change. I have not subscribed or resubscribed to Honor Club. I guess I would say subscribed because in my past Honor Club iteration, it wasn't under Tony Khan's rule. Ha ha ha! Tony Khan, the rule of Khan. So as of this moment in time, no. However, we had basketball plans changed tonight, and my wife is under the weather. So those two things may push me to do it, but we'll see.
You know, I'm kind of in the same boat. I've had until last night 9 trivia gigs in a row, and then last night was our holiday open house at my real job, which kept me out until I think I left there a little after 8, which isn't, super late, but still, another night of not being home at 5:30 or 6 or whatever. My wife is also under the weather. So originally I would have said no, because after 10 straight nights of not being home, if I said I'm going to go downstairs for 4 hours and watch Ring of Honor, I might as well just stay out and not come back for the next nights. But I don't know. We'll see how that goes. With it being only $10 to resubscribe to Honor Club and getting to see the show, a last minute decision is possible on that kind of thing. So we'll see if I see it. But Tom, you're going to get the first pick, and I don't know if this is on 0 Hour or not. I didn't even know this match was there until I saw you would put it in our Fantasy Wrestling League pick'ems. So super late ad from Tony Khan. But the Outrunners of Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum. Do I have those? Yeah, it's Turbo Floyd, not Turbo Magnum. Yeah. Versus, I can never remember. Anyways, versus Ross Von Erich and Marshall Von Erich, the Von Erichs.
So if this is, I love that we're starting here because, of course, like the Outrunners are, I think, a really solid team. They could be something more. And I think there's been ebbs and flows. For those watching on YouTube, I'm using my hands to make a wave type motion for the ebb and the flow. And this could be the starting point for them. That being said, this is in the greater Dallas area. And because of World Class Championship Wrestling, the Von Erich connection, and Iron Claw movie coming out a week from today, again, having the Von Erichs have the rub here is the right thing to do. They're also on Rampage tonight, so they're going to appear 2 places at one time. So Von Erichs all the way.
Yeah, and is Rampage on at its regular time tonight at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock your time?
I think so.
Yeah, so they're competing against each other. Ring of Honor and AEW tonight, which is, sometimes it's going to happen. We've talked about it before, but yeah, not a whole lot to say here. The Outrunners are a fun, very 80s tag team to me. And I like that because, of course, Golden Era, wrestling is kind of my bread and butter, what I grew up on. Of course, yes, Attitude Era and all of that too. But the nostalgia feels really hit me with 80s Golden Era kind of wrestling. So I love the Outrunners in that respect. That they would fit, and obviously that's their gimmick. They would very much fit in the 1980s tag team scene. So I love them for that. But there ain't no way they're beating the Von Erichs in Dallas, in the greater Dallas area. Like you said, a week before the movie and everything. Yeah. Sorry, that will get my 9 when I make the picks in a little later on today for this show. Then we go to the AAA Mega Championship, AAA Mega Championship. El Hijo del Vikingo defends versus Black Taurus. So Vikingo to me is interesting because he was red hot at the beginning of the year. He had 5 or 6 matches over WrestleMania weekend. He came in and wrestled Kenny Omega, and now I feel like he's really an afterthought in AEW. And I think part of that might be probably the constraints I would assume Tony Khan has as far as booking him, whether he can win or lose and those kinds of things. And that's just me kind of guessing. I have absolutely zero. I haven't read that or heard that anywhere, but I don't know. Vikingo feels like a guy who was one of the hottest acts in wrestling this spring, and now is just like when they announced this match, I was like, oh, that's right, he's still the AAA champion, and he's having his first singles match in what feels like forever on an AEW Ring of Honor show.
Well, and just to check, like, didn't he and Kenny Omega have like that match in like May, March of this year?
It was like after WrestleMania weekend, I feel like.
And it feels like it was so long ago, but it was literally maybe 9 months ago. It's crazy, right? It feels like a different world.
Yeah, it does. And Vikingo feels like he's in that different world. There's no way he's losing the AAA championship on a Ring of Honor final battle. That's just not happening. And I don't know in the AAA world where Black Taurus stands. I think he's a good worker. I really enjoy his stuff, and I think his look is so cool. I still haven't ordered his the figure that Boss Fight Studios put out of him. I'd like to, though, not because I necessarily see a whole lot of Black Taurus matches, but it just looks really cool because he's very, as some people say, toyetic in his look. So, but there's no way he's winning here. Vikingo is my pick.
Yeah, same. Vikingo definitely gets the W here. One thing I think that, in my zero watching of Ring of Honor, other than what I saw when I watched them tape TV, which we talked about a few episodes back, a staple that I've noticed at their pay-per-views is they've definitely given an emphasis in the spotlight to lucha-based performers, whether it be this match here or Commander, Vikingo in the past, Gravity, maybe Bandito in the past. So that could be something where they again, if they tried, that could be more of a focus. But again, it's just never gotten steam. I don't trust that today begins that process, but if it does, great.
I hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. This will be fun. For anybody who watches the show, I think if you like Lucha Libre, you like that style, I think you're going to enjoy this match. Tom, you get the next pick, the first pick, I should say, on the next match. The 6-man tag team title match added late last night. The Mogul Embassy, Brian Cage, Bishop Khan, and Toa Leona defend against the Mighty Don't Kneel. I believe from the picture, it's Shane Haste, Kosei Fujita, and Bad Dude Tito. I didn't see Mikey Nichols if I saw it right.
I'm so glad that you knew who to identify in the picture because I couldn't. Bad Dude Tito, I think, was the only guy I knew. So, yeah, great. It doesn't matter who you line up against the Mogul Embassy. They're not losing the titles tonight. The Mogul Embassy is retaining the titles. And thank goodness, my pickup, again, here's that fantasy wrestling conversation. I picked up Toa Leona, and then he went to the World Tag League. And so I've got nothing from him except for a -1 point. So thank you, Toa. I will gain points from you tonight.
Yeah, they didn't win a whole lot of matches, I don't think, in the World Tag League, if I remember right, which we don't score the World Tag League. But yeah, I'm with you. The Mogul Embassy's keeping the belts. They're not losing them to the Mighty Don't Kneel. Even though I like Shane Haste a lot, I thought he was criminally underrated or underutilized as Slapjack in Retribution. There we go. There it is. Retribution. Got to get one in. And I think Haste and Nichols as a tag team are really good too. I always enjoyed them in WWE and New Japan and other places as well, Ring of Honor. Yeah, they ain't winning the belts here. And especially this trio of them, because it feels like Haste and Nichols should be a part of it if it's, a real trio that's going to hold belts. So Keith Lee versus Shane Taylor is our next match, which I have to admit, if I was going to see this show, intrigues me. The Pretty Boy Killers from back in the day. I remember, I believe it was Atlanta. Could have been Phoenix, but I think it was Atlanta. Seeing these guys on the pre-show from Ring of Honor for a Ring of Honor show over WrestleMania weekend. And I couldn't tell you who they wrestled anymore. I'd have to look that up, and I'm not going to because I don't even remember if it was Atlanta or Phoenix for sure. But I was at both of those. And then to see where they've come, is that I think it's interesting here, though, that we did this match because when the Ring of Honor TV title was vacated by Samoa Joe and they announced that there was going to be, I think it was when they announced there was going to be an announcement about the future of the TV title and how they'd solve that. Shane Taylor had tweeted, there better not be an announcement about the TV title that doesn't include my name. So I kind of felt like he was the most likely guy to end up winning the survival of the fittest, and then he's not even in it. Annette just said it was Dallas, actually, where Pretty Boy Killers were on the pre-show. So it wasn't Atlanta, it wasn't Phoenix, it was Dallas. I was there too. So that's and actually now that she says that, yep, because there's reasons I remember that Dallas show. So so Keith Lee, Shane Taylor is the match. I'm interested. I would be interested in seeing this one. I think these two guys, because they've got such history, are going to put together a really good match. I think they're going to beat the tar out of each other. In the world of AEW, which influences Ring of Honor, we've seen that time and time again. Keith Lee is above Shane Taylor. So as much as I think Shane Taylor really could use this win, I'm going Keith Lee.
All right. I mean, that's a fair pick, and that's a good pick. Again, I'm going to go back to, okay, who are we going to focus on in Ring of Honor? It seems like Shane Taylor is more of a Ring of Honor staple than Keith Lee, or is this again the launching spot for Keith Lee to get Ring of Honor solidified, for lack of a better term? So it was interesting, Jim. I went ahead and I always like to do this because I'm glad that you had the recall from Dallas. I know I was there too. I don't remember seeing the Pretty Boy Killers.
I remember seeing them. I didn't have the Dallas part. That was Annette to help us out on the
Dallas part. But for sure. But like again, both of those facts or truths were lost on me. I am wearing, in honor of us, one of the shirts I bought during that weekend that we were in Dallas. This is from Magnolia, so not wrestling related, but it's all good. A year ago at Final Battle, it was Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee, Swerve in Our Glory, versus Shane Taylor and JD Griffey from Shane Taylor Promotions. Interesting that was the match a year ago at Final Battle, and now this singles match today. To your point, and to that tweet that Shane Taylor made, and I know we'll talk about the survival of the fittest coming up later, that could be a spot where Shane Taylor gets back in, perhaps. And under that context, if he were to be there and maybe win the title, which I think would be a positive move for Ring of Honor and for him losing here makes the most sense, because when you lose and then you win a title, you have a built-in challenger. So as much as I want to pick Shane Taylor because I think he's the more homegrown, Keith Lee is the star. He's a bigger name right now, and unless you're going to use this, which I just don't trust Tony Khan to use this for building up Shane Taylor in this match, I also go with Keith Lee.
Yeah, and I hear your comments of, well, who are you going to focus on in Ring of Honor? I just don't feel like he's booked that way. Tony Khan, there, like the number of times where it's been like, well, we could focus on that guy in Ring of Honor, but this is the AW star, so we're going to give him, the Ring of Honor tag team titles are a perfect example of that. They could be building the Ring of Honor tag team division, and yet they're still on MJF and Adam Cole, who Adam Cole's hurt. Who knows when he's coming back, hopefully soon, since I drafted him in this season 17 draft for a fantasy wrestling league. MJF has his own stuff going on and is injured in his own right, has some banged up things going on. So, I just doesn't seem like how Tony Khan books. So, Tom, you get the first pick on the Pure title match, which was added again last night, as much of this card was. Wheeler Yuta defends against Filthy Tom Lawler.
Again, interestingly enough, a year ago, Wheeler Yuta won the Pure title, and here he is now entering as the Pure champion.
We have doing research all of a sudden on this show. Like, when did we start doing research?
I just thought, here's the thing. I really wanted to go, like, what has Ring of Honor looked like a year ago and now? So that was my point of reference, not the research component. But I appreciate that you're calling that out because, monkeys can evolve, if you will.
There you go.
So I make that comment and the previous comment about like the 1 year kind of like benchmark, if you will, just to kind of say, like, what if someone watched Ring of Honor a year ago and then tuned back in today but saw nothing in between, right? Like some of these things like are natural connecting points. It's Wheeler Yuta all the way. There's not a chance in heck that he's going to lose this title. This is, again, we'll go back to fantasy wrestling. We do pick'ems there as well with confidence points. This is the highest confidence points without question.
Yeah, I mean, I have to put a 9 on one and an 8 on another, but the Von Erichs in this are my biggest ones. So yeah, Wheeler Yuta's keeping the title. They're not putting it on Tom Lawler. Yuta's part of Blackpool Combat Club. Tom Lawler's not signed, to the best of our knowledge. Lawler's featured in MLW again, actually now in the the World Titan Federation, which is just quick aside. We don't really talk MLW on here that much because neither of us have time to watch it. But WTF, great name for a stable, a heel stable. World Titan Federation, a clear nod to the WWE, who they were embroiled in a lawsuit with until just earlier this week. Like, Court Bauer, I got to tip my cap to you on that one. It's just, that's some good stuff. I enjoyed that. But Wheeler Yuta all the way. Okay, you and I don't watch Ring of Honor week to week. We've made that clear before. Here's a match that I kind of understand why it's happening, and yet I look at it and I'm like, is this Rampage? Because I feel like that's maybe where this match could happen, or like Dark from back in the day. An I Quit match between Ethan Page and Tony Nese.
This is arguably, before you make your pick, the most storyline driven match outside of the women's title on this entire card.
Outside of the women, I would agree with. Yeah. Probably not arguably.
No, it's not arguably. Yeah, I misused that statement quite a bit.
Keith Lee, Shane Taylor, they've done a little bit of build for, so there has been some there. But yeah, this has been built for a while. I have said before on this this podcast, Ethan Page just does not connect for me, and I don't know why. And I kind of feel, I don't want to say bad about that because I shouldn't feel bad about who I like or don't like. But like, he seems like a super nice guy. He works really hard. He works super hard at promoting himself and his vlog and his, all of that kind of stuff. Like, I have a lot of respect for the guy. I just don't know why he doesn't connect for me as a character. And I've never quite understood that. Tony Nese is a guy who I used to really like back in like the Evolve days. And when he first was in WWE and as the Cruiserweight champ and all of that, I really enjoyed Nese there. It hasn't connected for me in AEW, but again, he's been more featured probably on Ring of Honor, I feel like, and I haven't been watching Ring of Honor. So that's just probably the problem there with Nese. It's a stipulation match. It feels like the blow off to whatever their feud is. I'm going to go Ethan Page. And not care.
Yeah, well, and again, I think when we talked again, like when we did like kind of the roster analysis, or like what if we were given the book for Ring of Honor, what would we do? These two guys are a good example of like if Ring of Honor was more than it is, like this as a platform for them. And again, and to credit, they've used it to get to us to this point, and they've told some sort of story. Not compelling enough for me to plunk down $10 to tune in, but nonetheless, it still is. It's progress. So kudos in that regard. I feel to an extent how you feel about Ethan Page, but I think I like him a little bit more. Here's what I'm not happy about, and this is not related to Ring of Honor at all. But Ethan Page lost to Kenny Omega on Collision last week. You didn't have to do that. I know they connected a storyline that his ribs were hurt by Nese to that match. Fine. You didn't have to have him take a loss to Kenny Omega, though. Like, even though that's a loss that no one should be shameful about.
Right.
Like use someone else in that spot. Don't protect both these guys going into this, so that way when someone wins here, it actually feels a little bit more. Page is my pick if I didn't already say that out loud.
And I will tip my hat to the fact that Tony Khan himself appeared on Ring of Honor television to do the contract signing, for this, instead of having Jerry Lynn or Stokely Hathaway, who are both on the quote unquote the board of directors, which would have made some sense. So I guess he was trying to put a little more gravitas behind this, or whatever you want to say, which kudos, because Khan doesn't appear on Ring of Honor TV that often, frankly, from what I do read the results. And I don't see his name pop up, and he doesn't appear on AEW that often, except to make, I'm doing air quotes for those not watching on YouTube, major announcements, which, again, we've said before, just stop. So yeah, Tom, you get the first pick on the match that, frankly, in ring would be the match I would look most forward to seeing tonight. And some emotion behind it as well. Blackpool Combat Club of Claudio Castagnoli, Jon Moxley, and Bryan Danielson returning to Ring of Honor to take on FTR, Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler, and their partner Mark Briscoe. This is a ode to the dog collar match from a year ago, and obviously in memory of Jay Briscoe, who we lost in January of this year. So lots of emotion in this match, and 6 of the best going ahead in a trios match, 6-man match, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, Tom, you get the first pick on this one.
Yeah, this is tough and tough to pick. I mean, it's an amazing match. I love the emotion behind it. I love the connection. Is it weird that I think that Jon Moxley is too big for this match?
Nope, because I originally had when I was typing this into like I think the upcoming matches or whatever, I hadn't seen the graphic and I was behind. That was while I was really behind on AEW, which I'm now just a little behind on AEW. I had typed Claudio Wheeler and Bryan Danielson. Like I just assumed Mox wasn't working this match. Of course, they hadn't announced the Wheeler Yuta match because that got announced last night. So yeah, no, I did not. Yeah, didn't expect. And I think was Wheeler Yuta standing with Danielson when Danielson announced this match or like made the challenge? I feel like he was, or was it Claudio?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I have to go back and watch the AEW. Anyways, I felt like it was Wheeler, which made me think that. But yeah, no, I hear you on the Mox thing.
And so, like, it's hard to pick this match for me personally because there's the team I think that should win because of the big picture and the ongoing story. And I think there's the team that wouldn't mind losing. Again, wrestling is scripted, everyone. We know this, but like everyone's fighting for a reason. And again, if you're fighting for Jay Briscoe, you would think that like that would be what is needed for FTR and Mark Briscoe to pull out the victory. But they shouldn't win here. But will that happen? And that's where I'm super conflicted. So I have a hard time thinking of who in the BCC takes this pinfall, even though I know like Bryan Danielson is like the most selfless person and like can take a loss anytime, anywhere to anyone and not have that impact him. The other component too is everyone in the BCC is in the Continental Classic round robin and they're all still alive. And Mox, are you caught up on Wednesday or no?
I'm aware of results.
Okay, so like Mox is clearly the front runner in the Gold League, and Danielson and Claudio are still alive in the Blue League. Briscoe's out of it, but that's a moot point here because his purpose in this match is in memory of his brother Jay. I talked a lot about and gave a lot of just logistics, contextual things. I'm going BCC. I feel like that's a 55-45 pick for me, but I think that's the right move. I think Tony Khan has shown too, like he does go with like the stars more so than not. Let's hope that's the case tonight.
Everything you just said would be what I would say about this match as well. All of that struggle of trying to figure it out because it feels like Mark Briscoe should get the pin in this match. But and I won't be shocked if he does. Like if we either of us see the show or we read the results later tonight and Mark Briscoe pins Bryan Danielson, like I wouldn't be totally stunned, to be 100% honest, because of everything you said. I think Danielson would be the most likely to take that fall because he is the most selfless. Any one of those three guys could take the fall and they're Teflon. Like, even though they are all alive in the Continental Classic, like I don't think it would hurt any one of the three of them, given what this match is and that sort of a thing. I think this match almost could exist in its own universe, and not affect other things. My only request of Tony Khan, if you're going to put the Blackpool Combat Club over, and I'm okay with that decision, beat FTR. Don't pin Mark Briscoe.
Yep.
Hey, give Mark a win or two every once in a while in AEW, for the love of Pete. The guy is awesome. And, but yeah, please don't, in this match where you're honoring Jay, don't pin Mark. Again, Harwood and Wheeler, they're fine. They can especially to this trio, they can take a loss and it ain't hurting them at all. And they're not really in the title picture right now anyways, with everything going on. So I'm going to go Blackpool Combat Club as well, but I won't be stunned if we're wrong because you and I in our heart of hearts both think it should go the other way. It's just when you're making picks, you're using your head, not your heart. And both of us, I think our head is telling us Blackpool Combat Club. Now comes the most interesting one, and I think the most likely, with the two matches left, the only chance that you and I are going to make a different pick in this show, because I think we're both going the same direction in the main event. The survival of the fittest match, love that. for the Ring of Honor TV title. Love that that's how they're deciding it. Dalton Castle versus Commander versus Lee Johnson versus Lee Moriarty versus Kyle Fletcher versus TBA. Now let's set a ground rule here really quick, especially after something you said earlier. If we pick TBA, do we have to name the person that TBA is?
No, no. If you pick TBA, you get whoever that spot is.
Whoever that person is. So if it is,
you can
spec, or if it's Turbo Floyd, you get.
Did you say Hulk Hogan?
I did. I threw Hulk Hogan in there. I did.
I mean, Ric Flair showed up in AEW, so why can't Hogan show up in Ring of Honor?
Right. It could happen, right? Yeah, I was trying to pick like two polar opposites, and I thought Hulk Hogan and Turbo Floyd felt like the most obvious in that moment. Okay, so if TBA does. So, yeah, it is my pick first. That's right. I didn't want to jump in front of you if it was yours. So, okay, let's just talk through these really quick. I don't think Dalton Castle wins the TV title. I just don't think they focus on him at all. There's any one of these guys, I won't be 100% stunned if they win. Like, there's not somebody in here that, like a Turbo Floyd, that I'm like, well, there's no chance they're winning. All of these people I would give a chance, but Dalton's not. Commander,
you're kinder than I am.
Okay. Commander, I would actually like to see that. I just don't see it. He's somebody I wish they would get behind a little bit more because I really do like him. Lee Johnson. Okay, if I'm putting my lowest, it's on Lee Johnson.
Okay, thank you. Poor guy. He gets married and then his wife comes back and gets the TBS title. He comes back and he's food for the sharks.
He's probably the first one out in this match, I'm assuming. Lee Moriarty, I'm going to talk about in just a second. Kyle Fletcher, all depends on Mark Davis, how long he's out. If Davis is out for a little while, Fletcher could win the title here and have a short run as TV champ and do some stuff. I like Fletcher a lot. That would be okay. I don't need Annette winning any more points. Sorry, Annette. All love to you, but stop whooping the rest of us, will you? Come on. There's that, and then there's TBA. So I think the two for me that are most likely are Lee Moriarty or TBA. And Moriarty, I've been thinking about because if Shane Taylor does not end up in this spot, and I hadn't really thought about that until you said it, so now you've had my brain going, Tom. I thought Moriarty winning and Shane being his mentor because he's a part of Shane Taylor Promotions, teaching him how to be the best TV champ he could be an interesting story to tell. And eventually maybe it becomes where, Shane Taylor becomes overbearing and then Lee Moriarty breaks away. But it feels a little early to even start that story because Lee Moriarty just joined Shane Taylor Promotions in the last, month or two. I'd have to look back. I think the fact that and even before you said the Shane Taylor thing, I think the fact that they haven't announced that last person, and I went back and read Ring of Honor results from last night to make sure that hadn't been determined, I do think is a tip of the cap that whoever's coming in is going, and the fact that none of these people seem like, oh, there it is. That's the person they're going to put the TV title on. So I'm going TBA. I hadn't thought of Shane Taylor. That's an interesting one. I guess I hadn't really given a lot of thought to who TBA would be, just that it's going to be some sort of a surprise. And I don't know how you do it based off the 6-man, but I still think Mark Briscoe as TV champion would be really good. Again, I don't know how that would happen given the match that he's already involved in. But again, it's scripted. They can come up with a storyline reason. Maybe Mark, okay, really crazy thought just came into my head. Maybe Mark does take the loss in the 6-man and then goes and talks to Tony Khan and says, I have to avenge my brother. I have to, honor him. That can't be how this ends. Put me in the survival of the fittest. And he wins the title. I don't know. I'm just throwing a funny idea or a strange idea out there. Because he was about the only person that had crossed my mind, but I didn't know how to get him there from what they're doing. So maybe I just came up with the story.
Yeah.
TBA.
Yep. And here's the thing. If we weren't so close, I might be willing to risk a pick here. I'm with you that, like, for me, before TBA and it became today confirmed it was a mystery person or an unknown. and again, I clearly I like my Shane Taylor idea. Or I wouldn't have offered it up. My other one that I was holding on, but you just opened that door and kicked it open big time with a kangaroo kick of all things, was Mark Briscoe. It is Mark Briscoe. And it doesn't have to be either of those, but I think there's great storytelling that you could do with each if they're in this match. Shane Taylor because of the history with the TV title, Mark Briscoe just because of the Ring of Honor history. And if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Mark Briscoe slated to face Kingston for the Ring of Honor World title? All of that, those things changed this summer. Mark Briscoe's had good showings in the Continental Classic tournament, but is out of it. But here's a good way to reignite him and then make him a focal point of Ring of Honor into the new year. Again, I'm with you. Castle, Johnson, Commander, not a chance, in my opinion. If those three come out, then I guess I'm going to start playing the lottery. I like the idea of Lee Moriarty quite a bit. I've been a big fan of him for a while. I think he deserves a bigger, broader, better platform. I also really thought about Kyle Fletcher. I thought him as a singles and given a run here was a really good move, is a really good move. Again, because of the strategy of our pick'ems and because we're so close, I'm also going to go TBA. And I'm actually now hoping more so than anything that it does end up being Mark Briscoe, because I was feeling that way before you outlined it. But then as you outlined it, I love the way you described it.
Yeah. As much as I said, don't beat him, all of a sudden it came into my head like, wait a minute, there could be a way that could work.
Well, and I think pro wrestling storytelling, back to my comment in one of the other matches earlier today, like, and clearly good memory. It's been like 30 minutes. Beating someone and then having them win a title gives you a built-in challenger.
Yeah, that was in the Shane Taylor.
Yes, it was. I realized that after I said it out loud. I was like, come on, dummy. I haven't eaten. I've only had coffee today for what it's worth. So I need brain fuel.
Annette said Mark or Kyle both work for her. She has Mark Briscoe as well. That's true. Yes, you could have two dogs in this fight. And somebody picked up Dalton Castle, I remember. Commander Lee Johnson, Lee Moriarty not owned. So we'll see. And Shane Taylor, I don't believe is owned either. So we'll see in our fantasy wrestling league how this match shakes out. Tom, you get the first pick on the main event. The women's title match, Athena versus her former minion in training, Billy Starks.
Yeah, so arguably the MVP of Ring of Honor for the last year plus has been Athena. And I think it's criminally unfortunate that unless you're a Ring of Honor fan and a diehard and you have continued to be loyal blindingly, you're the only ones that know this. I think you and I know this because of what we followed, but clearly we've admitted we're not watching this, right? So we haven't seen all of these things. We're peripherally aware of what's gone on. But this story has been telling itself for a long time. And what a great opportunity for Athena to pass the torch, celebrate a fantastic women's title reign when we thought there were people before that would have already dethroned her. But Billy Starks is a future star. This is a chance for her to take this and move even quicker. It's akin to, like, again, if Nick Wayne wasn't part of the patriarchy, I'd love to see Nick Wayne in the Survival of the Fittest and have him have that platform as the Ring of Honor TV champion. Because again, to me, you got the Billy Starkses, the Nick Waynes, the Jordan Olivers, and there's a couple of other young talent that are going to be the people we're talking about for the next 8 to 12 years across the professional wrestling landscape. Interestingly enough, Athena defended the title a year ago against Mercedes Martinez, which is the person that, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Mercedes come into Ring of Honor when the acquisition happened as the champion, or did she win it right away?
She came in as the champion.
Okay, yeah, right. So that was a torch passing, whether we knew it at the time or not. And then Athena's had this, again, really strong reign, lots of proving ground wins, lots of title defenses, some really great matches. I think whatever the last pay-per-view was, and was it against maybe Willow or somebody else? I think that was like heralded as like one of the best Ring of Honor women's matches, if not one of the best women's matches of this year, if not, in the last 5 years. So all of that being said, kudos to Athena, kudos to her finding this spot and being given this platform, because I think after she left NXT, she never got the chance in WWE, and there's a lot of other factors I think involved there. But to now promote and put Billy Starks in this spot is where we find ourselves. So Billy Starks wins the Ring of Honor women's title tonight.
Yeah, Billy Starks winning the women's title, and especially in the fact that they put it in the main event spot, which it deserves, because you don't have Eddie Kingston on this because he's in the Continental Classic, and
you don't have MJF and Adam Cole.
You don't have MJF and Adam Cole, And of course, in a weird way, and you and I have talked about this a little bit, like they keep announcing Eddie Kingston as the Ring of Honor World Champion and JPW Strong World Champion. And yet Nigel McGuinness made a really good point that in a lot of ways, Eddie Kingston has really vacated those titles, and the winner of this tournament is declared the Triple Crown champion of those three. But they do keep referring to him as the champion. So Annette, you have not lost those title points. But in our Fantasy Wrestling League, because it's a really weird situation they've done with those belts. Now, they could have just had Kingston in one of his Continental Classic matches here, on Final Battle. And I suppose they could have put the titles online, although that would have been weird since originally, we talked about before, I thought I understood that Eddie Kingston was going to be defending his titles in each of his matches. Obviously, that was not how it played out, which for storyline telling is probably better, because either that would just telegraph that Kingston wasn't going to lose throughout the round robin, or you're flipping the titles, all over the place, and that could get confusing. So I'm kind of glad they didn't do that in a lot of ways. But yet they said they were going to, and then didn't explain why they didn't. So continuity, folks. But anyways, all of that isn't here. That doesn't matter. Athena Billy Starks it's deserving of the main event. They've been telling this story for a long time in Ring of Honor. And I think this is Billy Starks' coming out party as far as, being the Ring of Honor Women's World Champion and hopefully having a really good reign. And I don't think I think Athena will be just fine. I think it'll be interesting to see, does Athena stay in Ring of Honor, or do they slide her over to AEW and start doing some things with her there? If they do that, I just don't want to see her get lost in the shuffle, because as you said, I don't even think it's arguable. She's been the Ring of Honor MVP for the last year or more, and has been awesome in her role as a character and in the ring. So this should be really good. I'm glad they're getting the main event, and Billy Starks is my pick. So running down, we are chalk all the way down. We have the same picks, which means I will retain my one match lead going into World's End.
And World's End will decide it. World's End will be the end for one of us.
It will be.
And we're gonna have to be creative, because I'm gonna be the underdog in that when we make those picks. Again, follow us on Twitter for that when those do come out later this month. I'm gonna have to risk something.
You probably are. Maybe we'll have to connect on. We've done this once or twice before. Connect on Messenger and maybe make back and forth picks between ourselves, just so that we can do that, and it gives you the opportunity to be strategic if you need to be. And you do need to be, because you're going to be behind going into the show, so you will need to be strategic at some point. But that, I guess, we'll just jump to what we need to talk about as well with all of you. And does that sound like a good segue for you, Tom?
We have something we need to talk about with you. Would you come sit on the couch?
We need to talk.
Yeah.
And that is that Tom and I have made the decision that today is going to be the last episode of Two Spot Monkeys. And that may come as a surprise, or maybe it won't. I don't know, to some folks. But as we talked, life gets in the way a lot of our recording. And we know that doing this podcast, the only way, if we want any podcast, to grow and all of that, is consistency, obviously. And so there's that piece, and there's just, time and what we both have going on in our lives. We started this iteration of the podcast in 2020 during the pandemic, somewhat as an outlet for other people to hear something, and also for Tom and I to have something to do.
It was an outlet for us.
Right. This is the second iteration of Two Spot Monkeys. We also had a blog and then a podcast early back in, I have the blog up here, in the earlier 2000s. We ended that one in 2014. And then 6 years later, came back, and 129 episodes later, are drawing to a close. And I see a teary face in the comments from Annette. And I'm glad you're listening live, Annette, as we're able to talk, because we've said before, we really do mean it. Annette's like our number one listener. She's often on with the live on Friday mornings when we record. And we really, really appreciate that, Annette, and appreciate everybody who listens. So Tom, I've said a lot. I just kind of want to turn it over to you as well, to say anything.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. Right. So, I number one, I appreciate you. I appreciate this opportunity and the platform. We have connected for 129 weeks, and those have been amazing weeks and fun weeks and a good break from the regular reality of our lives and of our worlds. And thankful for pro wrestling, but more thankful for you as a friend and for the connection that we have here to not just demonstrate our friendship, but also connect around pro wrestling, fantasy wrestling, football, whatever else we've covered in the last 129 episodes. So again, bittersweet that we are kind of bringing it to a close today, but you named it really well. And I think the last 6 months was more of an indicator for me than anything, the inconsistency that we've had to find ourselves in over the last 6 months. I don't see that changing, and it's not fair to people who do spend their time and look forward to this. And again, I know that's a small few, but thank you to you, Annette. Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, anyone else. Greg, thank you. Yeah. So just we appreciate that you've been on this journey with us, and Jim and I are going to just remain amazing friends, regardless of a Two Spot Monkeys platform. And our love for professional wrestling doesn't subside just because I don't get a chance to talk about it with one of my best friends every week.
Yeah, absolutely. And same to you, man. You know how I feel about you and our friendship. And we were clear to say that back in 2014. I remember in the blog announcement we made. And so let's just be crystal clear. You know, this is not any indication at all of Tom and I's friendship. You know, this isn't the Rockers breaking up. Nobody's going through a barbershop window. But I mean, there's a window right behind Tom. So if there was going to be a heel turn, you know, it could happen. But super kick from Nebraska. But yeah, absolutely no indication. Nothing, no problem there. Just a matter of time. And yeah, I'm gonna miss doing this on Friday mornings. I have an idea that I'll talk to you about offline really fast when we sign off. But as far as that goes, you know, I look back at 129 episodes of this podcast. I don't have numbers on the blog and all of that we did with our head-to-head. I should say, really quick note, not that everybody cares about this in this moment, but we are still going to make those World's End head-to-head picks, and we will finish up the head-to-head for this round. And Tom will be buying me a figure after I beat him. So don't worry about it. It'll still happen.
For all who are concerned for Jim's figure collection.
Right, which has gotten out of control down here in this room, but I won't spin around because it's a disaster right now in this man cave. But in our previous iteration, we actually had a chance to do some interviews, which was pretty cool. A lot of them were text based, and then we actually got to be on the phone through a platform called TalkShoe that we used at that point to record, which I looked, and it looks like our old episodes are gone from TalkShoe, which is too bad. But we interviewed at least, and I know there were some others that were on the podcast version that don't show up here, but we interviewed Gabe Sapolsky 3 different times. We interviewed Michael Elgin. Whoops, all right. Well, that
came up in my Facebook memories in the last week or so, and I was like, "Oh, that didn't age well."
Oops. We interviewed Johnny Gargano. We interviewed Rhett Titus, John Davis, Mike Kingston from Headlocked. And quick shout out here on the last episode, but if you have not checked out Headlocked comic book series, pro wrestling and drama series, shout out to Mike Kingston. Go check it out. Headlocked. I believe it's headlockcomic.com, but just Google Headlock Comic and you'll find his stuff. Awesome stuff. Eddie Edwards, Mike Quackenbush. Yeah, that one didn't age well either. Adam Cole, baby. AR Fox. And we I believe it looks like we did a text one with AR Fox, and then we did an audio interview with AR Fox that I remember being the weirdest interview I had ever been a part of in any way, because there were sirens going on. He was yelling at people off the porch. It was so weird. I wish I could find the audio to that one. We got to text interview Kevin Steen, which I think was easily our most viewed interview, tens of thousands of views, crazy. We got to interview Davey Richards. I guess that one didn't air as well, or age as well either. Samurai Del Sol, Kyle O'Reilly, Roderick Strong, ACH, Sammy Callahan, and Ophidian. All were people that we at least text interviewed, emailed with, which was that was fun, and it's just fun to hear those names and see how many of them have gone on to be, I mean, Kevin Steen, world champion, Adam Cole, world champion, Roderick Strong yelling everybody's name at them on AEW. I have seen just the beginning of Dynamite and him yelling Samoa. I'm ready for that part of the character to be done, but that one was funny. That was at least like Samoa is his first name.
Well, and then the best part when he goes Joe, like
Joe,
right, Joe is just
Samoa, Joe. Roderick, tip of the cap to you, man. You've made that work.
Well, and I'm glad you walked down some of those names, because some of them I hadn't recalled that we had. Like I if you would have said, did we interview Roderick Strong? I'd have been like, no. Like Eddie Edwards, Dave Richards, those, but Roddy. That's cool that we did Roddy. So yeah, and big again. We're in reflecting back on that, which I know we sunset that a long time ago. But Gabe Sapolsky was always incredibly generous with his time and making connections. Also, Ross, who used to work for Ring of Honor prior to Sinclair closing, and back to the original Ring of Honor, Ross was always incredibly helpful in making connections for us with a lot of those talents, because we were excited to speak to them and engage with them, but also promote and give them an opportunity. Going back to the old school Ring of Honor, I'm pretty sure like whatever the Newswire evolved into, like we had some of our interviews linked in their media, so pretty cool.
Yeah, that was. And Judge Jeff Jones actually was a connection for us right at the end of that, as I think Sinclair took over in that time frame, if I remember right. He was a connection for us as well. But Ross and Gabe especially were huge and giving. And I believe it was Ross who helped get us Kevin Steen, which, that was while he was feuding with Chikara. The first place he ever made the Bumblebee comment that he was going to wear a mask and be Bumblebee, which he later did then in a promo, was on our site. So that was pretty cool. He had closed his email to us with, if there's ever anything else I can do for you guys, let me know. Because if you haven't had a chance to meet Kevin Owens or Kevin Steen, he is one of the most genuinely nice guys in the wrestling industry. I met him at a meet and greet once, and I've heard it numerous times, but he really was. He was totally giving. It was at that Chikara Ring of Honor show in Chicago. And it was partially his character, because he was against the whole working with Chikara thing. But they had meet and greets going on where it was $10 or $20 to get your autograph or your picture or whatever. And Steen comes out carrying a table at intermission and says, "I'm doing signings for free. Come with me." And so I got a picture with him, which I don't even know where it is anymore. Probably on a phone I don't own. But yeah, super cool guy. But anyways, that was the first place he had done it. He said if we ever needed anything, let him know. We tried to email him a couple times. He didn't reply, but that's okay. He's a busy guy. Because I thought it would be fun to get him connected with our blog and our podcast in some way, and it didn't ever pan out in anything, but that's fine. But as we draw this to a close, seriously, as Tom said, and I've said, thank you to anybody who gave us a minute of your time, much less 129 episodes, which some of you listen to every single one of them. On a personal note, this podcast, there's a episode from, I believe, early September or late August, probably early September of 2020, after my brother passed. It's the only one I think that is not on YouTube, because I chose not to put the video up for that one, but we just left the audio that you can still go back to, where we reminisce about my brother when I lost him, and what wrestling meant to he and I, and Tom had gotten to know Ted as well, so his memories as well. So it's been therapeutic for me in some ways. Obviously, we connected a year ago around the passing of my mom as well, when we could. And so it's been therapeutic in that way. It's been fun. It's never felt like work, and which is good, because we've made exactly $0 at this ever, nor did we set out to make any money with it. But so it's good that it didn't feel like work, because work you should get paid for. So who knows, some iteration of listening or hearing or seeing Tom and I spout off about wrestling may happen again in the future sometime. There's no plan for that, but who knows what the future holds. But at this point, it feels like the right time to just draw it to a close and say goodbyes for now. I think most everybody who listens to this already is connected with us personally. But if there is somebody listening to this and you're not like friends with us on Facebook or something like that, reach out to us. 2spotmonkeys@gmail.com is an email address. We're still on Twitter and Facebook. And we'd be happy to connect with you and talk pro wrestling at any point. If there are, but I think we're right that most of the people that listen are people we're already friends with. And that's okay. And that's been good. And we appreciate anybody who's given us even a minute of your time along this journey. Tom, anything else to say before we bring her to a close?
Yeah, no, you nailed it on the head there, and I appreciate what an amazing capstone with this episode. I did research, you did research. I mean, we've shown the people in the last 20 minutes what they could have had, and we've given them what they deserve. So what a way to go out.
Absolutely. And the title of this episode was Monkeys of Honor Forever, because Ring of Honor has been, it's how Tom and I met. We're closing out our last episode with Final Battle, which just seems apropos. But we will still have World's End picks, as we said on Twitter. So I just thought Monkeys of Honor Forever seemed like the right title for this episode to close it out. So again, thank you all so much. And connect with us, stay connected with us. Tom and I aren't going anywhere. We're just not recording a podcast. That's all. So please do connect with us and talk wrestling, talk whatever you want. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you guys, and we'll talk to you later.
Peace and be well, everyone. Thank you.